Alright kids, sit on down because I'm about to prove Daniel wrong in all 50 states, including DC and Puerto Rico. So, welcome to Cinema Brawls, guys. I'm Jake, and I'm going to be doing today the perfect 10 for The Dark Knight. I'm sure you've seen it. It's one of the most amazing movies in the entire world. Maybe the most amazing movie in the entire world. Just slightly up there above Princess Bride, but unfortunately I work with two idiots who disagree with me on that. So, we're going to go ahead and talk about why it's so great. And I'm sure there's been 1,000 people before we've talked about this, but that's alright because, everybody gets to share their opinion. Why don't we start off by talking about Batman himself? Because this is a Batman movie. What makes Batman so wonderful?
He hot.
Sure. wasn't on the list here, but I can throw it in. There's a couple reasons. Batman is by far my favorite superhero. I love him. And I personally think that Batman could take out any other superhero. Any one of them. Especially that no good, know-it-all, goody-two-shoes Superman. Especially. And that's been proven several times by a lot of people. First of all, Batman is just a normal dude. Batman is a guy running around in a cape, in a bulletproof suit, with a bunch of fancy little gadgets, and he is, on par with all these other superheroes, these other people who have abilities, these other people who can stop intergalactic beings from causing mass damage to the Earth. Batman rolls with them. If not, he's practically the leader of these guys, and he's just a normal little dude. And let me take some examples from when I go through this from not just the Dark Knight, but also from the Arkham trilogy, the games. First example, Batman is an insane detective. The dude is just a genius level on figuring things out. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why Batman can take on anybody else, is because he might be one of the smartest people that there is. And take a look at in the games when he's fighting Riddler. Riddler sets up a ton of traps, claims that he's the smartest, and basically just wants to prove that Batman's an idiot. But he never does, because Batman thinks through and gets things done. And that's how he's always done it, and that's how he'll always do it. And it's not just the gadgets. It's some of the gadgets, they help for sure. But it's the way that he goes in, just knowing how to assess a situation and how to get whatever it is that he's trying to accomplish his goals. Now, let me admit that the gadgets absolutely do help. Another great aspect of him is that he is filthy stinking rich. This dude's just loaded, and so he can basically buy whatever he needs to suit him in that moment. Again, he's got batarangs, he's got tanks, he's got sonar, and we see a lot of this stuff used in the movie and even throughout the games. And those help a ton. How could they not? He's basically the Iron Man of DC world, but smarter. Besides the intellect and the gadgets, he's one of the best skilled fighters out there. He trained with the League of Shadows. He is a ninja, and he has the ability to take on several huge groups of people all at once, as long as those people are, average at fighting, or at the very least have some trained combat. He can just sneak up, take out a few, and before anybody even knows what hits them, everybody's down. And that stealth and that skill combined allow him to take out threats before they're even really threats. It allows him to get into places that he needs to be. Now, if you look back through all the past examples of Batman, they've redone him a lot. And it's because Batman is a good story to tell. He's an interesting person. I mean, you've had Adam West, Val Kilmer, Michael Keaton, George Clooney, Ben Affleck. All of them have done a version of Batman. And that's just since, they started making movies about him. The first Batman comic came out in 1939. And since then, there's been over 460 million copies of Batman comics sold. And that's an insane amount. And so people really like Batman. And it's because he's an interesting, cool superhero, and he does things differently. I mean, all of his power, all of his skill, he attained on his own, whereas most other superheroes were in a freak accident or something to that effect that gave him an ability that nobody else has. Whereas if you think about Batman, really anybody could become Batman if they took the necessary time and skill and then, had dead rich parents. That being said, Batman is, and by himself, is just an amazing character. When you make a movie about that, it's going to be good most of the time. There are a few examples of times where it wasn't so great. And I'm not just referring to bat nipples. But Christian Bale nailed it. And was just, he's the most talked about Batman of today, honestly. People love Christian Bale. And you can go out and ask anybody, who's your favorite Batman? Most of the time you're going to get him. And it's because first of all, his Batman voice is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, but people love it. People imitate that Batman voice all the time.
Wait, is that your new stage voice?
Yeah? What about it?
Well, are you gargling marbles or something? I could barely understand it.
Other than that, Christian Bale was just, fit for that role. It was a very serious role, and he did it really well, and he's a really good actor. And that's pretty apparent from the way he was able to pull this off. And he's not even the bulkiest dude, but he bulked up for that role too. And I think that's too, he did that right before, or was it after shooting The Mechanic? And that, he was a stick. And so he had to gain who knows how much weight in such a short amount of time. It was actually kind of disgusting, but also really impressive. And so those are my thoughts on Christian Bale as an actor. But he definitely brought a lot of good to the role when he did The Dark Knight. Anyway, now that I'm done talking about Batman himself, let me get into the actual movie, The Dark Knight, which is the second of a trilogy. And there's a reason I picked the second. That's because everything about it is just better than the first and the third. First and third are great. But everything about the second was just mind-boggling. And one of the great things about the whole trilogy as a whole is the realism that it brings into the superhero genre. If you look on IMDb, The Dark Knight is classified as a action, thriller, drama, crime movie. Those are the genres for it. And that's, those are the things that it are. It's a crime drama with a superhero thrown in. It's not just some guy's origin story beating up on people with these massive powers, but there's actual conflicts. There's real world problems that come into play and have to be solved, not just by Batman, but by people like the police, the commissioner, the mayor, the DA. All of them are trying to figure this out in this, big city. And these are things that actually could happen. And, nothing about Batman screams impossible. Nothing about The Dark Knight screams impossible. It's right on the line of impossible. But it's on this side of realism where you can think to yourself, wow, under the right circumstances, this movie really could happen. A lot of different things culminate. I mean, you don't have a villain who's ridiculously overpowered. He's just an insane dude with an agenda, kind of. And you don't have a superhero who can do things that we know are impossible. You have a superhero who are doing things and you think, what if there is a Batman out there? What if there is somebody like that? Totally could be. And that realism keeps you grounded as you're watching the movie, so you don't pass into the point of unbelief, which I think is really, really nice, especially with something that's so, fantastic. If you heard of a real-life Batman story happening somewhere in some city, you would think to yourself, this is the greatest thing ever. This is amazing. And that's basically what The Dark Knight was telling the story like that. And so that realism is definitely a huge part as to why this Batman beat out every other Batman before it, but also why it beats out every superhero movie that is out there right now. And if you think about all those real world problems that they're solving, they're not stopping aliens from terraforming our planet or trying to, shut down a guy who's trying to kill a bunch of other superheroes out there. Some of the problems consist of, like I said, a homicidal maniac, fight for the soul of an entire city. Focuses a lot on mafias and gangs and politicians who have become corrupted. It even has a love triangle thrown in there with Bruce and what's her bucket, Rachel. That's something that you can think to yourself, all right, I can relate to this. I can hope for something like this. And the reason why that realism is so good isn't just because it's realistic, but Christopher Nolan himself really pulled it off. Like, he really knew what he was doing. And that's another reason why The Dark Knight is a perfect 10, is because of the director. Let me tell you a story. I have this friend named David. Not huge into movies, but he watches a lot of them. And one time I asked him what some of his favorite movies were. And he tells me, I like The Dark Knight, and I like Inception, and I like The Prestige, and I like Interstellar. And I'm not even kidding. He listed it in that order without any other movies thrown in. And I said to him, dude, every single one of those movies is made by Christopher Nolan. And he's like, who's Christopher Nolan? And I'm just like, there's no way you don't know who he is. You just listed off 4 of his movies as your top favorites. And so I pulled it up and showed him. He's like, wow, that dude needs to make more movies. I recommended him a couple more, like Memento and Dunkirk. But if you think about all those movies are really highly acclaimed. Like, Christopher Nolan knows what he's doing when he makes movies. Because I do. I love Interstellar and I love Inception. Inception was an amazing movie. The Prestige. People rave about The Prestige. And he's just, when he goes to work, he gets things done and he makes a coherent, mostly coherent storyline. A lot of times you do have to kind of think about it, but it's a really good, fun adventure and something that you want to keep watching over and over again. And, I mean, besides, the way he did those movies, when he was working on The Dark Knight, he made it, really well. The story was great and it was very aesthetically pleasing. There are a lot of really good scenes of, Gotham, especially at night. I can't stand movies when they're played, mostly in the dark, because I feel like everything is too dark and I can't see anything all the time. But the way Christopher Nolan did it was amazing. Everything felt like it was alive and vibrant, but it was still dark the whole time and gave it that, sense of, shadow cityism. You get the point. I mean, every scene in that movie, too, and just the way it plays out is amazing. I mean, the score, too, all the music, it all comes together to work. A really good example is probably, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, is the opening scene. Just think about that opening scene. Let me play a clip for you. see in just those few seconds, you see how the sound, just that eerie hum that's going through, creates a sense of like intense, okay, what's going to happen? And then boom, something intense happens, and it's going so fast, and it's just the beginning of the movie. You're wondering what's happening. And that whole opening heist scene is just a crazy thrill ride. And that happens throughout the whole movie. It's just more edge of your seat scenes. And the way the story was built like that was astounding. I mean, you start off with the heist, you move into the hospital threat, or the boat scene. Oh my goodness, the boat scene. I have never been more on the edge of my seat in anything. And that's just how I felt throughout the whole movie. I mean, you're freaking out because a hospital's going to blow up, and you're wondering, are they going to get everybody out? Like, is he really going to blow up the hospital? And then he does. He does. He blows up a hospital. And then he just goes on to something that's even more intense. Oh, now we're going to blow up some boats full of people. The whole time. And it's especially when Joker is on camera. Joker just creates that sense of edge on your seat, like intense dread, just knowing that he could do anything. I mean, even when he's in jail, you're still sitting there thinking, this guy is going to take some people. And you don't have a sense of comfort. He's behind bars, and there's no comfort in that fact at all. The story itself really keeps an effect with its pacing. It's very concise and very understandable. I mean, everything... There's no part of that movie, there's no line or dialogue or anything that doesn't add to it or isn't important. And it's really hard to find, and even though it's a 2-hour movie, it doesn't feel like a 2-hour movie while you're watching it. Because you're paying attention, you want to know what's happening. Even if you've already seen it, who knows how many times, at least 4 this month. Besides that, the story has a lot of, deep messages to it. In fact, I was looking at an article, and I'll put up the link for it and give credit where credit is due on io9.com about some of the messages that The Dark Knight had. And you think about it, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. One of those messages that stood out to me was the fact that they were trying to explain that opposites have to exist. I mean, in that movie, it's just full of opposites, and one thing will create the opposite. The Batman creates the Joker. You can't have anarchy or justice without one another. Good and evil will always, be in constant struggle. One will not matter or exist unless it has the other. And that's kind of one of the messages that The Dark Knight was trying to portray. Another one was that nobody is incorruptible. I mean, the whole city of Gotham was corrupted. Just about everybody. And even those people who were good enough to fight against all of that were still able to be corrupted. I mean, the most obvious example is Two-Face. He completely switches. Harvey Dent, the DEA, the guy who's putting all the people behind bars, becomes a vicious murderer, killing based on chance. But I mean, it's not just him. Batman does, a couple of the same things. Batman's not, totally pure. He does things that he's not proud of, and he knows that too. He's not even sure a lot of the time if the city needs him, because he knows he's not, Mr. does everything right all the time. And a good example is when he built that whole security surveillance system. Lucius was disgusted by that and, threatened to quit unless it was destroyed. And so Batman himself isn't even perfect. Everybody in that movie and everybody in life has something that could get to them. And so we can't always assume that we're in good standing. And that was kind of one of the messages. Another one of the messages is that people need to believe. Batman was, he started out as a symbol to the city, that something people could believe in for justice. And then he tried to move that over to Harvey Dent because he knew he wasn't going to be around forever. And that Harvey was a better symbol for the people to look up to. And when that symbol was about to be corrupted in the eyes of everybody, when the people were about to lose what they needed to believe in, Batman sacrificed himself so that people could keep believing in Harvey Dent. And yeah, that's true. In a lot of life, we need something to believe in. We need something to have faith in. Otherwise, things are just meaningless. Now, there's one more point that I'm going to talk about why this movie was so good. And it's the biggest point we've been overlooking. And that is, of course, the villain of the story. The villain was, bar none, the best villain I have ever seen. You can't beat the Joker. And even though Joker was already an amazing villain, the Dark Knight's Joker was above all of those. And I feel like he came with a message too. His message was that chaos is supreme, basically. That, there's no point to the order, and chaos is a good way to take down the corruption of the city. And you think about it, Joker was taking out the mobsters. He was burning their money. He didn't even kill Batman because he realized Batman was also an agent of chaos. Chaos for good, but chaos nonetheless. Now, another reason the Joker was so well played or well written in that movie is because of his intensity. Like I said before, he couldn't be on screen without that feeling of dread or chaos, filling you up. He was always in control throughout the whole movie. He said he didn't have a plan, but he had a plan, the whole time. I don't care who you are, you don't just end up in jail with another guy who's got a freaking bomb sewn inside him. You planned that out, okay? You planned out the boat thing. He's a liar, so what are you gonna do? But he really is insanely intense. You can never predict what he's going to do. He's completely unpredictable, and that's because his motives are based on just wanting to be chaotic. All he wants to do is kill and destroy the order of things, basically. And that's always really what we fear the most, isn't it? Is things we can't understand. Can't understand why Joker's going to do something. We don't even know who he is, and we never get that explanation of who Joker is. And that's why we're afraid of him. He's capable of anything, and it looks like he's using that to his advantage throughout the whole movie. He's even capable of creating his own villains. Created Two-Face, basically, through his own design, his own plan. He has several followers throughout the movie. And even in the comic books, anytime Joker shows up, he has followers. And he gets people to follow him, even though, what are they doing? They're just trying to sow chaos, that's all. Not only was the character written well, but the Joker was played very well as well. Heath Ledger did an excellent job, and I love Heath Ledger as an actor. I think we all do. I'm not gonna lie, I'll probably do another Perfect 10 about A Knight's Tale, because I love that movie too, and it's got Heath Ledger in it. But the dude is a great actor, and he was the first person to win a Golden Globe for a superhero movie. And that was this movie that he did, because that's how great of a job that he did while pulling this off. Now, granted, he went really deep into method acting, and that's kind of what got him killed. But, if he was going to go out, he definitely gave one heck of a performance before he did. And I think we all miss him a lot. But yeah, Heath Ledger really did the role justice. And that was the reason Joker was so great. That was the reason The Dark Knight itself was so great. And just everything about that movie screams Perfect 10. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you think of the movie, why you think it's great, or maybe even not so great. And I don't care, but I will fight you on it. Anyway, bye.